Boxy Boo has appeared in multiple Poppy Playtime, ARG, side projects and even in VHS tapes, yet his location in the factory has always been a big mystery, until today. It turns out the mob CEO officially announced that we should keep our eyes peeled when asked about Boxy Boo's future, but now we finally know what he meant by that. And in Chapter 4, we are able to find Boxy Boo's physical game files hidden in PART prison area, where we saw two separate boxes that seem identical versions of Boxy Boo's appearance. But based on the size difference compared to us the player, we know this obviously cannot be the real Boxy Boo. What is this weird Easter egg meant to tell us? Well, it turns out we're given some pretty important insights from one of the mob developers who addressed this same topic. Planning a chapter's story and gameplay takes a long time because future chapters are being planned simultaneously, so the developers can properly allude to where the story is going and foreshadowing later events. So they're basically leaving specific details like little Easter eggs and teasers that reveal early hints about what's meant to happen in future chapters. This happened in Chapter 3 with the main location being teased early on via a poster, an Easter egg from Project Playtime, and again with the many references linking to Huggy Wuggy's return at the end of Chapter 4. But in Boxy Boo's case, two little boxes and some code alone aren't enough to prove that Boxy Boo will be appearing in Chapter 5, unless this isn't the only times we've seen part of Boxy Boo show up. Aside from the prison security wall pattern randomly matching Boxy Boo's exact colour scheme, there was another, even more important sign of Boxy Boo left behind back in Chapter 3. It turns out hidden away in the game files we find another Boxy Boo file, only this time it was grouped together with two other files, one featuring a randomly coded clown head and another with a code for Huggy Wuggy. Now at first these seemed like random Easter eggs not meant to indicate anything important, right? At least that's what I thought before the release of Chapter 4. You see, the end of Chapter 4 proved that those randomly placed Huggy Wuggy Easter eggs and references were indeed important. They were meant to show us early on that Huggy was never really gone after his fall in Chapter 1. As the developers explained, these clues are used to foreshadow where the story is headed in future chapters. But again, what does this have to do with Boxy Boo? Well, knowing that the Huggy Wuggy Easter eggs were significant means it's likely the other clues are important too. For starters, the Clownhead reference ties in perfectly with the amusement park theme teased before Chapter 4. All that's left is this randomly placed code for Boxy Boo, which aligns with what the developers told us to look out for. But why would Boxy Boo show up in Chapter 5? In the Hour of Joy VHS, we see that Boxy Boo no longer appeared in the same theatre area which he was reportedly stationed at in the past. As seen in old ARG footage, instead he's shown in a much narrower space, indicated he's now in a lower, higher security part of the factory that we haven't seen yet. And this area perfectly matches up with the lab from the end of Chapter 4. We're literally told that the moment we enter this lab, special access is required before the security system stops us. Beyond this coincidence, it turns out that the labs have a much stronger connection to Boxy than we originally thought. Now we know Boxy had a special connection to the Doctor, the head of the Bigger Bodies Initiative, who obviously used to work down there all day. We even hear a VHS tape of Harley praising Boxy Boo and expressing great pride in his creation for being the first successful experiment.
They said it was impossible, yet you defied all odds. The first of many, naturally.
And this connection becomes massively important when you consider the agreement the Doctor made with the prototype. According to a VHS tape from the Doctor's back room, the prototype decided to keep the Doctor around and form an alliance to crack some secret about the Bigger Bodies Initiative.
You know I'm still your best shot at cracking that secret. If I weren't, you would have already killed me. A sound observation. Yes, you have made yourself useful.
Knowing that the prototype and the Doctor were working together, it explains why Boxy would be in the labs instead of with the Doctor in Chapter 4. The prototype is essentially using Harley as his tool, bossing him around to get what he wants, which would obviously include his main protector. And because the lab area is the prototype's home where he's working on understanding how the experiments operate, it makes perfect sense to me that Boxy Boo would be one of the obstacles waiting for us in Chapter 5. His presence in the lab aligns perfectly perfectly with his original function as an experiment. And we saw in one of the VHS tapes how Boxy was used to dispose of all the victims after the theatre incident. And after the incident, Boxy Boo was used to dispose of the people, with the quote, "I hope Boxy's hungry" being used by Leaf Pierre. We also seen another incident with an employee of Playtime Co. who found out about the Bigger Bodies initiative, where Boxy again was used to dispose of him and his knowledge. The area perfectly matches with the lab area because that's literally the place where the Bigger Bodies initiative was conducted and where experiments continue to be carried out by the prototype. It's a place where the prototype could easily use Boxy Boo to dispose of trespassers, just as he was originally designed for. And even we got more confirmation of this idea. Boxy Boo is a strong contender for the next chapter based on early information provided by Poppy Playtime's ex-director in a recent Q&A session. Many side characters, including Bron and Candy Cat, were partially designed for ideas meant to appear in future chapters, even though they never quite made the cut. And in terms of these teaser characters, Boxy Boo is the only one who hasn't been directly ruled out or confirmed to be removed from the series. Instead, we're simply told to keep our eyes peeled for any official news about him. And there's plenty of evidence to suggest that the developers have been teasing Boxy Boo specifically, and that he's most likely going to appear as one of the bosses in the next chapter. But before this chapter officially comes out, we're given early previews that include the truth about Chapter 4's most tragic character, the true story behind Pianosaurus. Many theories suggest that the version we saw destroyed was actually just a smaller toy version of the real deal, similar to how we see smaller toy versions of characters in Safe Haven compared to Doey and Us. And the Pianosaurus we encounter really doesn't seem that for a dinosaur, meaning there could still be more to his story. We're even given more official statements about Pianosaurus, including mentions of an entire dinosaur band, but rather than diving deep into his story right now, I'll be releasing a dedicated video soon that covers everything from his true scale to the hidden clues about his origin and what he might mean for future chapters. But if you're eager for more videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell in the meantime, but also check out this video as well.